Hello, boys and girls. Today I'm going to be reading the Missionary story, C.S. Lewis, Can You Imagine? In the soft, dark wood, a small grave had been dug. The broken body of a much-loved dog was gently placed into the earth. Two young boys looked on solemnly as someone took a knife and carved in the dog's name into a plank of wood. Jaxie. The youngest boy brushed his hand across the well-known name and there and then made a decision. Later that week, he pointed at himself and told his mother, "My name is Jaxie," in honor of his favorite dog. Clive Staples Lewis changed his name. He wouldn't answer to anything else. Eventually, his family pursued him to try the name Jack instead, and it stuck. In the soft, dark wood, a small grave had been dug. Picking up one book after another, Jack tried to decide what to take to boarding school. Leaving home in Northern Ireland would be hard. There was so much to leave behind. Walking down the corridor toward his mother's room, feeling hot and uncomfortable in his new school uniform, he opened the door inside. It was empty and had been for months. Jack's mother was dead. "I want to remember her room the way it is," Jack said as he walked towards the wardrobe, reaching out to touch the felt hats and fur coats his mother had worn. He tried to imagine her voice, but couldn't. Will I ever feel joy again? Why didn't God answer my prayers and make her better? Jack questioned. Why didn't God answer my prayers and make her better? Jack questioned. Jack didn't like England at first. "There are no green hills and the weather is very cold and damp," he sighed. But he grew to like England and eventually settled down to his studies. However, after a while, Jack no longer wanted to pray. "I try and try to pray, but it's never good enough," he complained. "I try again and again to get it right, but it doesn't work. Prayer is too exhausting. I don't think I'll do it anymore," Jack decided. Jack didn't realize that it was only Jesus, God's Son, who was good enough to pray perfectly. Jack stopped believing in God, but sometimes found himself wishing that God was real. It would be a few years before Jack would realize that his wish had always been true. Jack stopped believing in God, but sometimes found himself wishing that God was real. "You've got into Wevern College, Lewis. Congratulations." Jack smiled broadly at the news from his teacher. But the new college did not bring him back to God. "God does not exist," he said to himself firmly. But then why is he angry with God for not existing? "We're at war with Germany," a fellow student called out. It was 1914. The First World War had just begun. In 1917, Jack volunteered to fight. Before he left for France, he discovered a book by a Christian called George MacDonald. Jack read the book from cover to cover. In the trenches, he read a book by G.K. Chesterton. "This book is really good too," Jack thought. "How can it be that two of my favorite writers believe in God?" he asked himself. Jack read the book from cover to cover. It's good to be back, Jack declared as he returned to his studies at Oxford University. The war was a dreadful thing. So many young men had died. I'm glad it's over, but Jack didn't realize that even greater battle was raging. The battle was between Jack and God was going to win. First of all, Jack made a new friend who turned out to be a Christian. I really like Tolkien, even though he is a Christian. We have great discussions about books and writing, and about God. Tolkien thinks that I'll find whatever it is I'm looking for if I turn to God. Jack made a new friend who turned out to be a Christian. Jack wasn't sure about that. How can God make me happy? I don't believe he exists for a start. I'll keep trying to find what I'm looking for in books, or perhaps in beauty. Yet things have never given me a complete joy before. Where have I been going wrong? Then one day Jack realized that he had been looking for joy in the wrong place. Jack was traveling on the top of a bus when he suddenly discovered something amazing. It's like there's a door in front of me, he realized. I can either open it or keep it shut. I can either let God in or keep him out. I think I've been given a choice, but there is really only one choice that I can make. Open the door and let God in. Jack was traveling on top of the bus when he suddenly discovered something amazing. Slowly but surely, Jack began to change. Walking past a melting snowman one winter, Jack realized something. Bit by bit, that snowman was slowly melting. Drip, drip, drip. Trickle, trickle, trickle. And he's just like me. Bit by bit, I'm beginning to believe in God. Jack held his Christmas present tightly as he hurried home to get in from the cold. I've spent years running away from God. I didn't realize that all that time God was really chasing after me. Finally, Jack gave in and admitted that God was God. He didn't really want to believe, but he knew he had to. Finally, Jack gave in and admitted that God was God. Jack thought he should start going to church again. I'm not enjoying this, Jack complained. I believe in God, but not in Jesus Christ. So why am I going to church? He wondered. However, God's love is so great that he loved Jack even though Jack didn't want to believe in the love of God. The love that God showed by sending his Son, Jesus Christ, to the world to save sinners. Then one day, Jack and his brother Warren were driving a motorcycle to Whipsnade Zoo. That was when something happened. Jack explained to his friends one day, I set out not believing that Jesus was the Son of God. Then, when I arrived at the zoo, I did. I have been searching for joy all my life, but it was Jesus Christ I should have been looking for. I have been searching for joy all my life, but it was Jesus Christ I should have been looking for. Jack and his university friends started a writing group. Let's decide on a name for it, Jack said. Eventually, they came up with The Inklings. Jack had started to write children's books based on the magical land of Narnia. Stories were filled with talking animals like the ones he had drawn as a child. It was great when the first printed copies arrived. Warren held out the first copy in his hand. Your book isn't just about talking animals. The lion, Aslan, is a bit like Jesus Christ, isn't he? Jack smiled. I didn't plan to write a Christian story. It began when I imagined Fawn carrying an umbrella and a queen on a sled It was only halfway through the book that the lion came bounding in. Jack had started to write a children's book based on the magical land of Narnia. "Is it true that Jack is married?" one of the Inklings exclaimed. "Yes, but it didn't take place in a church. Joy is ill with cancer. They got married in the hospital." It was hard to imagine the pain and heartache Jack must be going through. At first, Jack had married his American friend, Joy Gershom, to help her stay in the United Kingdom. The ceremony took place in a registry office, not a church. But when Joy fell ill, both she and Jack realized that they loved each other, so they were married properly. After Joy died in 1960, Jack wrote another book about the sadness of death. "Grief feels like fear," Jack thought as he wrote. "Why is it so hard to talk to God when I need Him most?" he asked. Time passed. Jack came to be at peace with God. When Joy fell ill, both she and Jack realized that they loved each other. Then, 3 years later, Jack himself began to get sick. On the 2nd of November, 1963, he died. However, his Narnia books are still firm favorites. You've probably even seen the movies. C.S. Lewis is remembered for taking a lion and a wardrobe and making them into a wonderful story. But it is the truth that Jack believed. While driving on a motorcycle to Whipsnade Zoo. That is the most important part of his life. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. C.S. Lewis is remembered for taking a lion and a wardrobe and making them into a wonderful story. The end. I have a question for you. So at the end of the book, they talked about C.S. Lewis and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Have you ever read the book or watched the movie? You should. It's really good. But I have to warn you, there are some sad parts in there. Bye.